The chamber door slid open with a soundless hiss, and Ambassador Dr. Sarah Chen stepped into the hall of the Galactic Council. For a moment, she could only stare. The space was enormous, tier upon tier of alien delegations arranged in a perfect circle, glowing banners and bioluminescent panels casting shifting light across the floor. Her footsteps echoed as she advanced to the center. She felt painfully small, one fragile human from a divided world standing before civilizations that span the stars. "Don't stumble," she told herself. "You're Earth's first voice among them." Her eyes flicked nervously across the assembly. Insectoid creatures clicked their mandibles in quick bursts. Aquatic beings floated inside shimmering orbs of water. Feathered avians shifted on tall perches, their plumage flickering with emotion. Some traded scents, others pulsed colors, still others hummed subsonic notes that vibrated in her chest. For a moment, Sarah wondered if she belonged here at all. Then the Chancellor rose. Tall and translucent, veins glowing faint blue, he regarded her with heavy eyes. "Representative of Earth," his voice rumbled, "you may speak." Sarah bowed slightly. "Thank you, Chancellor. I am Ambassador Dr. Sarah Chen of Earth. It is an honor to stand before this council." Her translator drone hovered at her side, broadcasting her words in dozens of tongues. The chamber quieted. She began with familiar data, her voice steady despite her nerves. Earth is a Class M terrestrial planet, orbiting Sol. Diameter, 12,700 kilometers. One large moon. Atmosphere, primarily nitrogen and oxygen. Polite nods followed. Routine. Safe. Sarah relaxed a little. And then she added, almost casually, 71% of Earth's surface is covered by liquid water. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. The insectoids froze mid-click. The aquatics thrashed wildly inside their orbs. A feathered delegate screeched so sharply it echoed through the chamber. Even the Chancellor's glowing veins flickered erratically. Sarah faltered. I repeat, 71%. Oceans, rivers, rainfall." The hall erupted. Chaos burst from every corner, angry flashes of light, overlapping screeches, panicked clicks. Delegates shouted over one another, the translator spitting fragments, "Impossible, hoax, liquid water cannot exist so freely." Guards surged forward to contain the panic. One slender alien even collapsed, overcome. Sarah stood frozen, her datapad trembling in her grip. She hadn't meant to cause this. It was just a fact. The Chancellor slammed his staff against the floor. The uproar died to a trembling hush. Slowly, his many eyes fixed on her. His voice, when it came, was almost reverent. "Ambassador Chen," he said, "repeat your statement." Her throat dry, Sarah forced herself to nod. 71% of Earth's surface is water. The Chancellor's glow darkened to crimson. He leaned forward, voice heavy with awe and dread. "Then, Representative, your world is the most valuable planet in this galaxy." The words still echoed in Sarah's mind, the most valuable planet in this galaxy. She barely had time to process them before the chamber dissolved into chaos again. Delegates leaned forward in disbelief. A cephalopod-like ambassador flared its tentacles in alarm, its translator shrieking, "Water cannot exist free. It freezes, it boils, it vanishes. She lies." From the insectoid tiers came a storm of mandible clicks that the drone rendered as a fabrication. A trick to gain attention. But others did not doubt. Sarah caught the hungry gleam in their eyes. The Aquari delegation pressed against the glass of their water-filled orbs, their bodies trembling with something like reverence. "A world of oceans," their translator whispered. "A paradise." The Chancellor raised his arms for order, but his command only barely stemmed the tide. Silence. The council will not descend into riot. His voice thundered, but still the chamber buzzed with unease. One delegate, tall and skeletal, rose with an accusatory gesture. Ambassador Chen, you expect us to believe that commoners on your world bathe in this water? That it falls from the sky in endless cycles? Sarah's mouth went dry. She hesitated, but honesty seemed the only path forward. Yes, she said carefully. It rains, it evaporates, it flows into rivers and back to oceans. Our people use it daily, for drinking, cleaning, farming. Gasps swept the chamber. One alien let out a high-pitched keening. Another struck the rail before it in fury. A voice cut through the noise, blasphemy. You squander what we bleed to harvest from comets. Another, one blast can cost a city's fortune. And you swim in it? Sarah faltered. Each admission seemed to inflame them further. Yet a few delegates looked not enraged but desperate, eyes wide, as though her words described salvation itself. The chancellor struck the floor with his staff again, blue light rippling across his translucent form. Enough! His many eyes fixed on Sarah, unblinking. You have spoken truth, or madness. This council must confirm which. He turned to his aides. Convene the scientific assembly. Immediately. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine. She had expected skepticism, maybe ridicule. Not this storm of fear and desire. She realized with sudden clarity that Earth had just become more than an obscure newcomer. It had become a target. Her thoughts drifted briefly to home oceans glittering under sunlight, children splashing in rain puddles, families filling glasses from the tap without a second thought. Ordinary life. She could see it now through alien eyes, unthinkable wealth, squandered in ignorance. The Chancellor's voice rang out again, final and sharp. This session is adjourned. Until proof is established, the representative of Earth will remain under Council protection. Guards moved swiftly to encircle her. Sarah clutched her data pad to her chest, her pulse racing. The delegates' eyes followed her as she was led away, some filled with outrage, some with awe, some with naked greed. She knew, in that instant, that Earth's place in the galaxy had changed forever. The chamber where Sarah now sat was smaller, but no less intimidating. This was the scientific assembly, a conclave of the galaxy's greatest minds, summoned with alarming speed after her revelation. Around the circular table hovered beings of every imaginable form, crystalline entities humming in resonance, gaseous clouds swirling with sparks, reptilian scholars with eyes like molten gold. Sarah's chair felt painfully ordinary in comparison. She folded her hands in her lap to hide their trembling. A voice like breaking glass spoke first. Ambassador Chen, you claim your world contains liquid water on its surface. Such a statement contradicts millennia of physics. A second voice, low and guttural, added, on every known world, water exists only as vapor or ice. To hold it in liquid state requires a balance so precise it borders on myth. Sarah cleared her throat. Earth has that balance. The right distance from our star. A stable atmosphere. A magnetic field to protect us. Temperatures within the liquid range for H2O. The crystalline beings vibrated harshly, producing a discordant note. Preposterous. A fairy tale. But the aquatic delegate from earlier surged forward in its orb, its voice quivering. Describe your oceans. Sarah blinked, then nodded. They stretch for thousands of kilometers. Depths up to 11,000 meters. They cover most of our planet. They are vast. The room pulsed with murmurs, disbelief mingled with awe. One scholar whispered, an entire biosphere fueled by liquid cycles, unimaginable. To strengthen her case, Sarah pulled out her datapad, projecting images, satellite photographs of Earth's blue surface, rivers cutting through green continents, clouds heavy with rain. The scientists leaned forward as if beholding a miracle. Gasps and exclamations filled the room. "Blue," one cried. "An entire planet, shining blue." But then the tone shifted. A reptilian scientist hissed, "If this is true, your planet is a resource of unfathomable value. Do you grasp what danger this places you in?" Sarah hesitated, but nodded. "I do now." The aquatic scholar pressed closer, desperate. "Do your people waste it? Pour it away?" Sarah thought of sprinklers, of fountains, of children with water balloons in summer. She winced. "We do not treat it as rare." Shock rippled across the assembly. Some looked horrified, others enraged, and a few dangerously eager. The crystalline speaker resonated again, this time slower. "If your testimony is true, Earth is no longer merely a new member of the Council. It is the most strategically vital planet discovered in known history." The room grew tense, heavy with the weight of new reality. Finally, the presiding scientist addressed her directly. "Ambassador Chen, until further proof can be gathered, your planet will be marked under Council observation. But understand this, knowledge spreads quickly. Already, empires will be mobilizing. Your Earth has been exposed." Sarah's pulse quickened. She could see it clearly now, fleets turning toward Seoul, driven not by curiosity but hunger. And for the first time, she felt the true gravity of what she had unleashed. Sarah sat in a high chamber flanked by council guards, her nerves frayed. The Chancellor himself had called this emergency strategy meeting. Around the circular table sat military commanders and political leaders of the galaxy, each one hardened by centuries of interstellar conflict. Their gazes pinned her like knives. The Chancellor began without ceremony. "Ambassador Chen, do you understand what your revelation means?" Sarah swallowed hard. "I understand that Earth is valuable. But surely..." A commander with obsidian skin and burning orange eyes cut her off. "Not valuable. Irresistible. Do you grasp how many wars have been fought for a single comet's ice? For one small reservoir locked under rock? And you stand here claiming a world where water falls from the sky?" Murmurs rippled, some furious, some awestruck. Another delegate leaned forward, voice like grinding stone. "You are unprotected. Primitive fleets. No planetary shield. Earth is a ripe jewel waiting to be plucked." The words chilled Sarah. She thought of Earth's cities, New York, Beijing, Nairobi, Sao Paulo. Billions living their ordinary lives, utterly unaware that their planet had just been declared a prize for the galaxy's most powerful empires. The Chancellor raised his hand, silencing the others. "Our laws forbid conquest of a new member world. But laws are not always obeyed. Empires will already be moving." His gaze fell heavy on Sarah. "Your people must be warned." Sarah forced herself to speak, though her voice trembled. "If Earth is attacked, we have no defense. What can we do?" A commander with scales like armor leaned forward. "You must make yourselves indispensable. A planet of oceans is a resource. But knowledge is leverage. Do your people understand water in ways others do not?" Sarah blinked. Her mind flashed to Earth's scientists, climatologists, hydrologists, engineers. Our irrigation systems, desalination plants, flood management, even simple wells. To us, commonplace. To the galaxy? Perhaps a miracle. "Yes," she said slowly, her confidence growing. "We understand water cycles, purification, storage. We don't just have it, we manage it. Share that knowledge, and we offer more than oceans. We offer survival. The chamber hushed. Even the fiercest commanders looked thoughtful. The Chancellor inclined his head, a faint light flickering through his translucent veins. Perhaps Earth is not only a resource, but a teacher. But then his tone hardened. Still, the danger remains. Fleets will come. The Council can only guard you within its reach. Beyond that, he let the words hang, heavy and grim. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Earth was standing on the edge of history, between survival and destruction. And she, alone, was the first shield. In that moment, she realized her mission was no longer just diplomacy. It was to save her world from becoming the galaxy's battlefield. Sarah could not sleep. The alien city around her hummed with strange energy, towering spires glowing with light, ships gliding silently through the skies, but all she could think of was home. Earth, spinning quietly in the dark, suddenly exposed to predators it could not even imagine. The Council guards stationed outside her quarters were meant for protection, but their presence only reminded her of danger. Somewhere out there, fleets might already be adjusting their courses toward Sol. She sat at her desk, data pad glowing faintly, sketching words she hoped might become Earth's salvation. Water is not just a resource, she wrote. It is a cycle. Rainfall, rivers, oceans, evaporation, clouds. We have lived with it, studied it, learned to bend it to our needs. This knowledge is our defense. The door chimed. When it opened, a familiar face floated inside, Ambassador Lurak of the Aquari, suspended in his shimmering orb. His eyes were wide, almost pleading. You must help us, his translator whispered. Our world has only frozen seas. We melt ice at great cost. If what you say is true, if water can be harnessed as you claim, then your people hold the key to survival for many. Sarah hesitated. She had thought knowledge alone was not enough. But now, looking into Lurak's desperate eyes, she realized something. Earth's oceans might make it a target, yes, but Earth's expertise in managing water might make it indispensable. On Earth, she said carefully, we clean seawater for drinking. We irrigate deserts. We recycle and purify. Lurak's orb trembled. You can make deserts bloom? Yes, Sarah said. But it is not magic. It is science. It is systems and machines, powered by understanding cycles we take for granted. The Aquari let out a sound that could only be awe. Then Earth is not just a paradise. Earth is hope. Later, in the Council's library, a cavernous hall filled with shimmering holograms of data, Sarah pored through archives. She realized how rare even basic water control was in the galaxy. Many civilizations harvested ice from comets, or condensed vapor from air, but none had built the vast networks of dams, canals, and purification plants Earth used every day. To the galaxy, Earth's everyday practices were revolutionary. That night, Sarah began to shape her plan. If Earth could not defend itself with weapons, it would defend itself with knowledge. Share enough to make allies, but keep enough to remain essential. Teach the galaxy what it had never mastered, the art of living with water. The next morning, she returned to the council chamber with a new fire in her eyes. You see Earth as a treasure chest to be plundered, she declared, her voice steady. But I tell you this, our true power is not in what we have, but in what we know. If you want water's secrets, you must deal with Earth as a partner, not a victim. For the first time, the council listened in silence. The warning came faster than anyone expected. Sarah was in the middle of a council briefing when a red flare lit the chamber wall, an urgent signal of military alert. The Chancellor's aides rushed forward, their voices sharp. Unidentified fleet detected. Entering Sol system. Sarah's heart lurched. Sol. Her home. Earth. The Chancellor's glow dimmed to a grim shade. Which banner? He demanded. Crenarian Empire, came the reply. The words sent a shiver through the room. Sarah had already heard whispers of the Crenarians. A ruthless power, infamous for strip mining worlds and enslaving weaker species. If anyone would move first, it would be them. Her datapad trembled in her hands. How many ships? Dozens. Warships. Carriers. Extraction vessels. Sarah's breath caught. They hadn't come to talk. They had come to harvest. Back on Earth, telescopes had already spotted the intruders. News channels flared with panic. Governments scrambled emergency councils, but their militaries were laughably small compared to what was descending. In the chamber, the Chancellor spoke heavily. The Council's treaties forbid invasion of a member world. But the Crenarians will not care. Earth must prepare itself. Sarah stood, her voice rising sharper than she expected. We cannot fight them. Our weapons would barely scratch their hulls. There must be another way. One commander hissed. There is none. To them, you are livestock, your oceans, their prize. Sarah's mind spun. Images of Earth's blue sphere filled her thoughts. The Crenarians would descend, drain, and leave behind a husk. Unless Earth could make itself too valuable to destroy. Wait, she said, her voice steadier. They think only of water as matter. But what if we show them water as knowledge? If they take our oceans by force, they win once. If they ally with us, they gain endless expertise. Systems to create more water anywhere. Some delegates scoffed, but others shifted uneasily. They knew the truth, ships could steal oceans, but not understanding. The Chancellor regarded her in silence, his many eyes flickering. Finally he said, Ambassador Chen, if you can prove that Earth's knowledge is greater than conquest, you may yet save your people. But the Crenarian fleet will not wait long. As the council meeting adjourned, Sarah lingered at the window of the orbital station, staring out at the stars. Somewhere beyond the darkness, warships were bearing down on her world. Her chest tightened, but her resolve hardened. If Earth cannot fight with guns, she whispered to herself, then we will fight with what we know. The reflection in the glass showed a tired woman in a simple diplomat's suit, but she no longer felt small. She felt like the line between her world and annihilation. And the line was very, very thin. The skies above Earth were no longer empty. Within days of the Crenarian arrival, more fleets began to appear on the edges of the Sol system. Each carried the banners of rival powers, empires, coalitions, even mercenary houses. Their ships hung in the void like predators circling prey, waiting for the first to strike. On Earth, panic grew. Cities watched alien vessels flicker across their night skies. News anchors spoke of the end of history. Militaries stood ready, but all new resistance was hopeless. Governments begged Sarah for answers, and she could offer only one: negotiation. In orbit above Jupiter, the Council established a temporary station to host emergency talks. Sarah arrived under heavy guard, her heart pounding as she entered a chamber thick with tension. Representatives of the Crenarians loomed at one end, a species of towering reptilian warriors, armor-plated with metal scavenged from conquered worlds. Their leader's eyes burned yellow, his voice a low growl. Surrender your oceans. Or we take them. Across from them sat delegates from the Kalari Alliance, sleek avian beings whose feathers shimmered like fire. Their tone was equally sharp: Earth's resources belong under Council stewardship, not to raiders. And then came others, the crystalline, the insectoid, even neutral traders. All argued not for Earth, but for their own claim to its bounty. Sarah stood in the middle of it all, a single human voice against the roar of civilizations. When the chamber descended into shouting, Sarah raised her hand. Her voice was not loud, but it carried. "You all see Earth as oceans waiting to be drained," she said. "But you misunderstand. Water is not just a liquid, it is a living cycle. We don't simply have it. We manage it. We've learned to turn deserts into farmland, to recycle what is wasted, to create balance." The Cranarian leader sneered. "Knowledge does not quench thirst." Sarah met his glare. "No. But knowledge prevents thirst from ever coming. If you drain Earth, you gain water once. If you work with Earth, you gain the key to making water forever." Her words hung in the chamber. For a moment, even the Cranarian's eyes narrowed in thought. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, Sarah looked down at Earth through the viewport. The planet glowed blue, fragile and radiant, while alien fleets glittered like daggers in the dark. She whispered to herself, "We have to make them see. Not oceans to steal, but wisdom they cannot afford to destroy." She knew the next step would be the hardest. Earth could not hide. It had to gamble everything on one bold declaration, one that might either save it, or paint an even brighter target on its back. The storm was gathering. And Sarah stood in its eye. The council chamber was filled beyond capacity. Every faction, every empire, every merchant guild had sent envoys to witness what the human ambassador would do. Outside, Earth hung in the blackness, encircled by alien warships like vultures around a wounded animal. Sarah Chen stood at the central podium, her data pad in her hands, her heart hammering. She knew this was it, the moment to change Earth's fate, or seal its doom. The Chancellor gave a solemn nod. "The floor is yours, representative of Earth." Sarah drew a breath. Her voice trembled at first, then steadied. "You see Earth as a treasure chest to be cracked open. A planet to be drained, leaving behind only dust. But I say to you, oceans are not our true gift. Our gift is what we know." The chamber stirred, but she pressed on. "On Earth, we have built machines that turn salt water into drinking water. We irrigate deserts until crops grow where once there was only sand. We recycle wastewater until it is clean again. Our children play in fountains because we understand how to make water flow endlessly. This is our power, not possession, but mastery." A wave of murmurs rose. Some skeptical, some curious. The Cranarian commander bared his teeth. "Empty boasts. Why should we not take your oceans and learn the rest by dissecting your world?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. "Because if you destroy Earth, you destroy the only teachers who can guide you. You can steal oceans, yes. But you cannot steal understanding. You will waste what you take, and soon thirst again. Work with Earth, and we will share what we know. Systems. Science. A future where none need starve for water." Silence stretched, taut as wire. Then Sarah raised her hand, activating her datapad. Above her, holograms shimmered to life, vast irrigation canals greening deserts, desalination plants turning seawater fresh, satellites tracking global rainfall patterns. Images of children splashing in rain puddles. Rivers flowing endlessly back to seas. The hall was transfixed. For many, it was the first time they had seen water abundant. Not frozen, not locked in mines, but moving freely, cycling in beauty. Sarah let the silence linger, then spoke the word she had rehearsed alone 100 times. "Earth offers this knowledge to all worlds willing to enter into partnership. But hear me well, if Earth is attacked, that knowledge dies with us. Choose conquest, and you win one ocean. Choose cooperation, and you win water forever." Her voice rang through the chamber. the choice is yours. For a heartbeat, the chamber was utterly still. Then the arguing began in shouts, demands, frantic debates in a dozen tongues. But Sarah knew she had done it. She had planted the idea. Earth might not survive on force. But maybe, just maybe, it could survive on need. The council's grand hall had transformed into a battlefield of words. Where once there had been disbelief and mockery, now there was calculation. Delegates crowded the tiers, some shouting, others whispering urgently into comlinks as Sarah's gamble echoed through the galaxy. For days, negotiations stretched without pause. Sarah was summoned again and again, her voice raw, her nerves stretched thin. The Cranarian Empire demanded first rights. "We will protect Earth," their commander declared, "and in return, all knowledge flows to us alone." Immediately the Kalari Alliance objected, feathers flaring in anger. "Monopoly will doom the balance. Earth must share equally, or none will stand by them." Neutral traders offered credits, promising to fund Earth's defenses in exchange for exclusive desalination technology. Others begged outright, describing dying worlds where children went thirsty. Sarah listened to them all, exhaustion tugging at her bones. Each faction wanted to twist Earth's gift into advantage, to hoard instead of share. Yet she held firm. "You misunderstand," she told them again and again. "Earth will not be owned. What we offer must be shared, or it will destroy us all." The turning point came during the third week of talks. Sarah presented prototypes, small water purifiers built with Earth's simplest designs, easy to replicate. She showed how even a barren rock world could sustain a colony with enough ingenuity. Delegates crowded around the demonstration, their disbelief turning to reverence. Some reached out, trembling, as fresh water poured from the device into a clear vessel. One crystalline scholar whispered, "It is as if you conjure life from nothing." Sarah shook her head. "Not magic. Only science. And we will teach it if Earth is left free." Still, the threats never ceased. One night, Sarah overheard two commanders arguing in a corridor. "Take the planet now, before others bind us with treaties." Her blood ran cold. Even here, under Council eyes, conquest was only a heartbeat away. But then allies began to gather. The Aquari pledged their support, desperate for Earth's guidance. Smaller nations of the galaxy, those long exploited by great empires, saw in Earth's proposal a chance to break free of thirst forever. Together, they pushed for a treaty, a formal pact to regulate water knowledge, guarded by the Council, with Earth as the center. Sarah watched this fragile coalition take shape with both awe and fear. The balance was razor thin. If it held, Earth might survive. If it failed, fleets would descend before the ink dried. One night, standing before the viewport of her quarters, Sarah whispered to herself, "We've come so far, but the storm hasn't passed yet. Tomorrow decides everything." She had no illusions. The final vote would be war or peace. Survival or extinction. And she would have to carry Earth across that line. The council chamber had never been so tense. Every seat was filled, every faction represented. Outside, Earth's blue glow shimmered on the central display, a reminder of what was at stake. Sarah Chen stood at her podium, her hands clasped tightly to steady herself. The Chancellor's voice carried across the hall, "Today we vote on the water accords, whether Earth shall be recognized as guardian of water knowledge, protected under Council law, or whether other paths shall be taken." The implication was clear. Other paths meant conquest. Delegates rose one by one to speak before the vote. The Cranarian warlord thundered first, his voice like grinding stone. "This is foolishness. Earth is weak. Better the strong manage its oceans than entrust them to primitives." His fleet commanders roared their agreement, pounding armored fists on the railing. The Kalari ambassador responded sharply, feathers rippling gold. Strength is nothing without wisdom. Earth has proven mastery no empire has achieved. To deny them protection is to condemn us all to endless wars over ice and vapor. Smaller nations followed, some hesitant, some desperate. A desert-born envoy raised a trembling hand. Our children die for lack of clean water. If Earth truly shares what it knows, then they give us hope no empire has ever offered. The chamber buzzed with arguments, fear, and greed. Sarah listened, her heart in her throat. She had gambled everything on this day. At last, the chancellor raised his staff. Enough. We proceed to the vote. Delegates placed their tokens into the glowing urns at their stations. One by one, lights flickered across the chamber, blue for approval, red for rejection. Sarah's breath caught as the count began. Blue. Red. Blue. Blue. Red. The pattern swirled, every flicker a hammer against her chest. The Cranarian block cast their tokens last, all crimson. A wave of dread surged through Sarah. It might not be enough. The Chancellor's aides stepped forward, holding the results. The hall fell silent. By majority, the Chancellor intoned, his many eyes fixed on Sarah, the Council recognizes the water accords. Earth shall not be conquered. Its knowledge shall be shared under treaty. Its people are under our protection. The chamber erupted, not with chaos this time, but with a roar of voices, some cheering, some outraged. The Cranarians stormed out in fury, their armor clattering like thunder. Others pressed forward, already eager to secure agreements with Earth. Sarah's knees nearly buckled, relief crashing over her. Against all odds, they had won. But even in that moment of triumph, she felt the weight of what came next. Earth was safe for now. But safety meant responsibility. Billions of lives across the stars would look to her people for guidance. The Chancellor's voice cut through her thoughts. Ambassador Chen, welcome. You have not only saved your world. You have changed ours. Sarah bowed her head, the enormity settling in. The storm had passed, but the tide of history was only beginning to rise. The council vote had changed everything. Overnight, Earth was no longer an obscure, vulnerable planet. It had become the beating heart of a galactic transformation. Sarah Chen walked through the council station's grand atrium, her steps echoing under the high crystalline dome. Around her bustled beings of every shape and size, delegations carrying crates of equipment, scientists rushing with data slates, journalists flashing holographic recorders. Everywhere she turned, someone was talking about Earth. Dr. Kelvin joined her, his eyes shining despite the fatigue etched into his face. You wouldn't believe the requests pouring in. Colonies asking for purification units, entire planets begging for irrigation systems. The water authority's inbox is drowning. Sarah managed a tired smile. A good problem to have. The first official project had been a drought-stricken mining colony on the outer rim. Sarah had accompanied the delivery herself. The image was seared into her memory, thousands of beings lined up in silence, watching as the first tanks were unloaded. When the pipes hissed and clean water sprayed into waiting reservoirs, the crowd erupted in tears, laughter, and songs. A small child, thin, skeletal, but smiling, had reached out to touch Sarah's hand. "Thank you," the translator whispered in her ear, carrying the child's voice. "We won't be thirsty anymore." That moment, Sarah thought, was worth every sleepless night of negotiation. Back on Earth, the changes were just as dramatic. Aliens had begun arriving in waves, not as invaders, but as students and pilgrims. They came to study at the newly founded University of Aquatic Sciences in Geneva. They came to walk along beaches, to stand in rainstorms, to sail on oceans they had once believed were only myths. Sarah's brother sent her a message showing tourists in bright cloaks squealing with joy as waves crashed over them at Bondi Beach. "They're paying a fortune just to get wet," he laughed in the recording. "People are building businesses around water tours. Who knew Earth's everyday life was an interstellar luxury?" But alongside the excitement, there were fears. Governments debated strict protections for lakes and rivers. Religious leaders warned against turning sacred waters into entertainment. Earth's leaders worked overtime to balance opportunity with responsibility. Meanwhile, the Galactic Water Authority began its ambitious mission. Ships designed by human engineers, with alien materials and propulsion systems, were rolling out of orbital shipyards. They were called tide carriers, massive vessels capable of storing, filtering, and delivering millions of liters of water safely. Sarah attended the launch of the first tide carrier. As the ship lifted into the void, banners from a dozen species fluttered on its hull. The cheers from the gathered crowd felt like the dawn of a new age. "This is what we're calling it now," Dr. Kelvin whispered beside her. "The Water Renaissance." Sarah let the phrase roll over her, watching the ship disappear into the stars. Yes. A renaissance. Not just for Earth, but for every world touched by water. For the first time, Sarah allowed herself to believe it. Humanity hadn't just survived the galaxy's hunger. They had given it something greater, hope. Not everyone celebrated Earth's rise. In the depths of Council space, whispers spread. The Crenarian Empire nursed its humiliation, their fleets prowling just beyond treaty borders. To them, the water accords were chains, binding their claws while Earth basked in glory. On one shadowed outpost, a Crenarian warlord slammed his fist against a steel table. "They made us beggars before the Council. This cannot stand." Around him, officers hissed in agreement. Plans for raids, sabotage, and accidents were already being drawn. Back on Earth, Sarah was beginning to feel the cracks beneath the triumph. Reports arrived of stolen purification units, a black market selling counterfeit devices. Some colonies, too desperate to wait for official shipments, had turned to smugglers. Worse still, there were rumors of entire shipments disappearing in transit. Sarah confronted Dr. Kelvin in Geneva. "If we can't control distribution, all of this will spiral into chaos." Kelvin sighed, rubbing his temples. "We built hope faster than we built protection. That imbalance will attract predators." Sarah leaned against the window, gazing at Lake Geneva, where alien families picnic by the water's edge. The scene should have filled her with joy, but instead she felt a knot of dread. The Crenarians won't stop. If they can't conquer openly, they'll strike from the shadows. Her fears proved right. 2 weeks later, a tide carrier en route to a desert moon vanished without a trace. Council investigators found only fragments of hull, charred and scattered across an asteroid belt. The Council chamber erupted in outrage. The Crenarians denied involvement, their warlord sneering. "Perhaps your technology is not as flawless as you boast." But Sarah knew better. This was no accident. It was a warning. She rose to address the assembly, her voice hard as steel. "If Earth is to serve as guardian of water knowledge, then we cannot stand alone. We need patrols, escorts, defenses. Without protection, the accords are nothing but words on paper." Some delegates balked. "Are you asking for a military alliance?" Sarah met their eyes steadily. "No. I'm asking for survival." That night, Sarah walked along the Thames during a rare visit home. Rain drizzled over the city, the river swelling with fresh stormwater. Children, both human and alien, splashed in puddles, laughing. The simple sight stirred something fierce in her heart. She thought of the destroyed TIE carrier, of the Crenarian warlord's sneer, of the fragile coalition that had placed its trust in her people. And she made a silent vow. We will not let this renaissance be drowned in blood. If they come for us, they will find more than water waiting. They will find resistance. The storm was not over. It was only beginning. The illusion of peace shattered in the cold void between Mars and Jupiter. A TIE carrier, escorted by a small fleet of Council patrol craft, was en route to deliver water purification modules to a newly settled moon. Sarah had signed the authorization herself, eager to prove Earth's promises were real. But halfway through the journey, the convoy fell into silence. The alarm reached her at the Geneva Command Hub, unidentified fleet engaging. Requesting immediate reinforcements. The feed crackled, and Sarah saw it, sleek warships sliding from the darkness, bearing the unmistakable insignia of the Crenarians. Their cannons flared, ripping into the patrol ships. The TIE carrier swerved, shields buckling, its cargo spilling like blood into the void. Sarah's chest constricted as she gripped the rail, watching the disaster unfold in real time. They swore before the Council they would not strike. An officer turned to her, face pale. Madam Ambassador, the Crenarians hide behind denials. They'll claim this was pirates. But we both know. Yes, Sarah whispered, fury hardening her voice. We know. In orbit above the battle, the Council's rapid response fleet finally arrived, a wall of silver hulls flashing into position. Orders barked across channels in a dozen languages. For the first time in history, a multinational coalition opened fire not on Earth, but in its defense. The clash was brutal. Crenarian raiders fought with savage precision, their ships darting like blades between larger vessels. But the Council fleet held the line. Lasers streaked, missiles flared, and for long minutes, the void was lit like a second sun. At the height of the chaos, Sarah received a secure message from the TIE carrier's captain: "We cannot hold. Tell Earth, the water must flow." A moment later, the feed cut to white. When silence returned, wreckage floated where ships had once been. The Council fleet limped home, damaged but victorious, the Crenarians driven back, though not destroyed. Sarah stood before the Council soon after, grief and anger sharpening every word. This is no longer rumor. No longer shadow. They struck at us openly. How many more ships must burn before we call this what it is: war? The chamber erupted with fear and debate. Some called for retaliation, others for restraint. The Chancellor raised his staff, silencing them. The Crenarians test our resolve. If we falter, Earth falls. If we unite, perhaps we endure. That night, Sarah could not sleep. She walked the quiet halls of the Council station, haunted by the captain's last words. The water must flow. She stopped before a viewport. Stars glittered, cold and indifferent, yet she felt their weight pressing on her shoulders. Earth had stepped into the galaxy not as victim, but as catalyst. And now, enemies sharpened their blades in the dark. Sarah whispered to the void, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. We didn't come this far to drown in fear. If they want a war over water, then they will learn rivers carve valleys not by strength, but by persistence. The first clash had come. The next would decide everything. The Council chamber had become a crucible. Smoke still clung to uniforms from the recent battle, officers limping in with bandaged limbs, voices hoarse from shouting commands. But now the shouting was political, factions demanding retribution, others fearing escalation. Sarah Chen sat at the heart of the storm, weary yet unyielding. Every word of the debate carried the weight of her people's survival. The Calari ambassador spread his wings, feathers gleaming under the chamber lights. If the Crenarians are allowed to strike again without consequence, the Accords collapse. Earth falls, and with it, hope for us all. A crystalline delegate countered, voice ringing like chimes. And if we retaliate too strongly, we plunge into galaxy-wide war. Do you want rivers of blood alongside rivers of water? The hall erupted in overlapping voices. Sarah rose slowly, waiting until the noise subsided. Her voice was calm but carried iron. The Crenarians believe Earth is weak. They think if they strike from the shadows, we will bow. But we are not weak. We are water. We endure. We adapt. And we carve our future with patience and strength when required. Back on Earth, her words sparked a new unity. Governments that had once squabbled over borders now pooled resources into a planetary defense initiative. Engineers worked side by side with alien allies, installing shield generators in orbit, expanding spaceports, and adapting tide carrier designs into hybrid defense ships. On the streets of New York, banners hung across skyscrapers, "The water must flow." Children wore badges shaped like droplets, their laughter echoing with pride instead of fear. Yet beneath the determination lay unease. Families whispered of evacuation plans. Farmers wondered if their rivers would one day run red instead of blue. Hope and dread braided together in every heart. One evening, Sarah visited the Thames again. The river gleamed under city lights, alien visitors marveling at its gentle flow. A group of Kalari children dipped their wings into the water, laughing. A human boy joined them, tossing pebbles to make ripples. Sarah's chest tightened. This was what they were fighting for, not ships or treaties, but the simple miracle of shared water. Dr. Kelvin joined her, his voice soft. "We've awakened something bigger than Earth, Sarah. People believe now. Not just in water, but in us." Sarah nodded, eyes never leaving the river. Belief is powerful. But belief without defense is only a dream. We have to be ready when the Crenarians come again. And they will come. The Council's decision was final, a joint defense pact, Earth as its cornerstone. Fleets would patrol not just Earth's skies, but the spaceways where tide carriers traveled. For the first time in history, humanity was not merely defending itself, it was leading a coalition. As Sarah stood before the gathered assembly, hearing the oath of unity sworn in dozens of tongues, she realized something profound. Earth was no longer the galaxy's victim. It was becoming its shield. The sky above Earth darkened with war. The Crenarian Empire had cast off its mask of denial. Their fleets poured into the Sol system in numbers unseen before: warships, carriers, extraction vessels. Their intent was clear: crush Earth, seize its oceans, and shatter the Accords before they could take root. Alarms wailed through every orbital station. Civilians scrambled into shelters. Defense ships, human and alien alike, rose from the atmosphere, their hulls glinting in the sunlight. For the first time in history, Earth was not alone. Sarah Chen stood in the command center, every screen alive with tactical feeds. Her throat was tight, but her voice steady. They want to drown us in fear. We answer with unity. Today, Earth stands firm. The battle ignited above the blue curve of the planet. Crenarian cruisers advanced in tight formation, cannons blazing. Council ships countered, weaving a shield around Earth. Explosions lit the void, fragments of metal spinning like deadly confetti. The roar of comm channels filled Sarah's ears, shouts, prayers, desperate calls for reinforcements. A tide carrier, repurposed for combat, unleashed a torrent of superheated plasma, carving through an enemy frigate. But for every Crenarian ship destroyed, two more pressed forward. Sarah clenched her fists. We can't match them ship for ship, we need something more. Then came the moment she had prepared for. Dr. Kelvin's voice rang over the comms, initiating Operation Floodgate. Hidden satellites activated, releasing a cascade of nanoparticles into the void. These particles condensed into dense clouds of vapor, obscuring the battlefield. Cranarian targeting systems scrambled, their precision faltering. Out of the haze, Council ships struck with brutal accuracy, turning the enemy's strength against them. Sarah's chest surged with pride. Not brute force, knowledge. Earth's weapon had always been ingenuity. Hours passed, the battle raging like a storm. Finally, the Cranarian flagship drifted into view on the main screen, a behemoth bristling with weapons. It charged its main cannon, aiming directly at Earth. Panic rippled through the command center. If that shot fired, oceans would boil. Sarah slammed her hand on the console. All units, focus fire. That ship must not fire. Every vessel poured its strength into the flagship. Lasers, missiles, and plasma strikes hammered its shields. The flagship staggered, its glow faltering. Then, with a final coordinated barrage, it erupted in a blinding bloom of fire. Cheers erupted across the channels. The Cranarian fleet, leaderless, began to scatter. One by one, their ships jumped into hyperspace, retreating into the dark. Silence settled over the void. Earth still spun below, ocean shimmering in the sunlight. Sarah exhaled, trembling. They had survived. Not because of Earth's might, but because Earth had inspired unity. The Chancellor's voice came over the line, solemn and proud. Today, the galaxy has learned. Water flows not to be stolen, but to be shared. And Earth is its source. Sarah looked out at the planet she called home. Blue. Fragile. Eternal. The water must flow, she whispered, a vow for all who would come after. And for the first time, she truly believed it always would.